Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hair Like Hers podcast, where we talk all about women's hair health and wellness with leading professionals from the medical, wellness, nutrition, and fitness industries. I'm your host, Shab Kaspara, NYC celebrity trichologist and hair health expert, and the founder of Leona.co, the first retail platform matching and guiding women with the best hair growth solutions from around the world. Wherever you are in your hair and health journey, you can be rest assured there is something for everyone on this show. You can follow me at Shab Hair Expert on IG, TikTok, and YouTube. Please show your support by sharing this show with your friends and family or leaving a review on whichever platform you're listening from. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Oh my goodness. Ashley Diana, welcome to the Hair Like Hers show. It's so amazing to have you. I am so lucky that you found the time to come on. It's really an honor to have you.
I am thrilled to be here. I'm so excited to have this chat about hair extensions. You have such a great platform and niche, and I'm really into wellness and healthy hair. So when you reached out, it was perfect. I couldn't wait to have this conversation with you.
You know, wellness is just the new direction every industry, every platform, every professional is taking. So we are going to take it further than anyone ever has, and we're going to focus on hair extensions and hair health. And we are going to answer all those questions that you may have, which, could explain some hesitancy getting extensions, or you've been dabbling in extensions, you haven't found the right one, so you can understand all the options out there and so much more. So Ashley, can you please tell everybody a little bit about your background, what got you into this industry, and who you are?
Absolutely. Ashley Diana, and I have been a hair extension specialist for about 15 years. I actually got into the hair industry when I was 14, because that's when I had my light bulb moment when I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And I'll share that story because it's interesting, especially if there's any cosmetologists listening. But when I was 14, I was in a hair show for Redken. And it was when Sambia had he was just becoming big,
Oh my God. He was the man even then.
Oh my gosh, he is so amazing. And I went to like a model call and he picked me to be like his haircut model on stage. This was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I was on stage, and I remember the haircut and everything that he did, it was so cool. He called it his money haircut because it was a cut that he could do really, really fast, but it was awesome and it could make you money because you could schedule the cut like every, 15 or 20 minutes. It was amazing. But I remember being on stage, he just got my hair and he was drawing on his little tablet on the stage. And I remember going, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is so cool. So I walked up the stage and my mom was there and I go, Mom, I'm going to go to hair school. And she goes,
you're all of 14?
Yeah, I'm 14. And she goes, okay, after you go to college first. And I'm going.
Newsflash.
So anyway, long story short, I went to college for a year and then I went to cosmetology school. So we met in the middle.
Oh, wow.
I went to cosmetology school and, but honestly, ever since that day when I was 14 and seeing and being with Sambia on stage, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is my light bulb moment. And then I had another light bulb moment regarding extensions at my first salon I worked at. It was actually there was a woman that I met at the Sambia hair show. And she came up to me right after I just walked off the stage and seen my mom. And she goes, if you need a hairstylist, I would love to be your stylist. She ended up being my stylist like all through high school and all the things. And I started working at her salon as soon as I got out of cosmetology school. One day in the salon, and she's just she still does hair. She's an amazing person. One day, this was again about 15 or so years ago, she had this client in her chair and she had these I was seeing her apply these long rainbow streaks in her hair. And I walked up and I was like, what are you doing? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. This person had shorter hair. Now their hair's onto their waist and there's rainbows. What's happening? And she told me, it's this new thing, like keratin extensions, and you apply it and it can last for months and months. And I was like, there you go. That's it. That's what I'm doing. So truly, those are my two light bulb moments. As soon as I saw that head of hair extensions, the transformation that could happen in one day and just the colors that you could apply without having to use chemicals and sit under the heat and all those types of things, I was just totally sold. And I thought, I'm going to be a hair extension specialist. And I did. And back then there wasn't really people only doing hair extensions. Now there are, And I'd like to think I'm been a part of that movement because I've been kind of screaming, you can be a hair extension only stylist, like from the rooftops for the last 5 or 7 years, because it's something that I did. And it was very kind of, maybe you look a little cross-eyed at, to be like, well, you're only going to do extensions. I'm like, yes, honey, I'm only going to do extensions. So I started building my business uh, with extensions. And I started doing color and cuts. And then I became an extension only focused stylist. And that's been my love, my passion. I'm now the founder of a hair extension online academy for hair extension. It's called Rich Stylist Academy. And that is my main focus now, is helping other hair extensionists have a great business, but also really perfect their technique, have great conversations with them and discussions. We chat on a daily basis. There are stylists from all over the country and the world inside of this community. It's really about elevating their technique and also elevating the client experience. So that is my main focus now, but that's my story.
That's only part of her story. Don't be fooled. There's so much more. There's so much more going on in this, in this Ashley world. So
That's a bit of it. That's the hair,
yeah,
that's
it's
the
just
hair
like
story.
that's
That's
like
the
a
fast
teaser.
forward.
We'll definitely get into that. I can't wait to. I love the story about Sam Villa. Is it Villa or Villa?
I've always said Via, and to be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I say Via, but maybe Villa.
Sam Villa,
He's
whichever
just
one
Sam.
it is.
He's
He's
just a
Sam.
one namer.
He is, literally. Okay, so this is so funny. You're gonna love the story. So you are, a teenager, and you're at this hair show, and this is so crazy. I can't believe this. So I grew up in the hair industry, right? Like my mother had hair salons and hair schools from since I was like born. And in Toronto, where I grew up, we had the huge, huge hair show, the ABA, Allied Beauty Association show in Toronto. And it was the biggest one in all of Canada. And I would go to these shows with her since I was like a little kid. And I will never forget the first time I saw Sam on the stage.
Yeah.
Same thing. I was a little girl. I was a young girl. And I saw this guy who's like a freaking wizard, magician, the personality, the charisma, the technique. I've like never seen anything like it. And I remember thinking, I am going to be like the next Sam Villa. Like that's going to be. So like, I get it. Like it's just like, you're like transfixed on this like performer on this stage, like, and you've never seen anything like it. So I totally get that. And I love how he inspired you also. We need to reach out to him. He needs to know what an influence he's been.
I agree.
So many years ago.
I'll have to send you a post that I posted a while back about it. I have pictures of me together when I was 14. I'm wearing like a whole Redken get out, like
wow,
like the model little outfit and stuff. I saw him. It was at Orlando premiere. It was fast forward. I mean, it was probably 8 years ago now. But I was like, I guess I was like psycho level. I was like psycho level. I brought my little book that I've gotten printed for my pictures when I was 14, because you go and get your pictures printed back then. So I had my little folder. I thought, if I see Sam Villa, I'm gonna have to show him our picture together. So I saw him and I like moved through the crowd and I'm like, damn.
Wow.
And he signed my picture.
Oh my God.
You're the reason I started doing hair. And
I
remember you on like a rooftop in Charlotte. I was like, yes, that was me. And now I have pink hair and I'm in the industry.
Oh, I love that. That must have been so nice for him to hear that.
It was really neat.
And it's incredible that he was huge then. He was like the go-to like art director in the hairdressing industry. And then he's like even bigger today, which I think
he's amazing.
So rare. Like that this guy has been around forever. Anyways, we're totally fangirling.
We can go down a stylist rabbit hole with that. But I mean, he is wonderful, and he's built like an incredible brand. And most of all, just that's the power of energy for you. People's energy and their passion.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you another reason why I'm guessing the both of us are really drawn to this guy. Because like I was formerly also an extension specialist here in New York. And
yes,
I think it takes a very unique individual that wants to specialize in extensions. And I think that's somebody who loves technique, loves to be meticulous, appreciates the art and the science behind hairdressing. And I know that guy is all about techniques and he's calculated in his work and all that. So
certainly
definitely see the commonality. Okay, so let's talk about methods and techniques of different extensions, right? People want to know, what are all the different types out there? Give us your input, your preferences, kind of what you're working with. And then, and how much how much more than just the brand someone is carrying you have to look into, right? You can't just like shop according by brand because it doesn't necessarily guarantee that person's technical level. But yeah, let's get into all the different methods out there.
There's lots of different methods, and it seems like there's new ones popping up every day. I would say that the the main few are keratin, weft, tape, I-tip. Am I missing one? As far as like the major, because okay, so then let's go. Let's talk a little about each one. So when I say keratin, some people call that, things can have different names. So it can be called keratin, can be called strand by strand, it can be called fusion, it could be called K-tip, it could be called bonded hair or bonds. So when you see those words, it is a fusion keratin tipped hair. I've always called it keratin fusions,
Right.
but there's lots of different hashtags if you look them up. Strand by strand can also mean I-tip. So I-tip and keratin fusion, K-tip, they are different. There's I-tip. A lot of people are calling keratin's K-tip now.
Mhm.
I never called it that, but again, it's a very popular name. So
And
let's
the keratin one is it has like this synthetic keratin. That's
yes,
what's
it
actually
has the
being
keratin on the hair,
right.
and it is with a tool, whether a hot tool or a cold fusion tool, it is fused. It may sound like a scary word, but it is adhered and wrapped around the hair. The tip is already on the hair. It's not scary. It can sound like it. And I know you know this, y'all, but for the listeners.
Yeah.
And then with the I-tip, it is a small strand of hair, typically with a little cylinder at the tip. And it is split into a bead, like a silicone lined bead, and crimped, or the bead is kind of squeezed, crimped onto the hair. And so those are the differences. Sometimes I've had a lot of people reach out to me before. I said, hey, can you move up my I-tips, because they see strand by strands on my page, and I'm like, that's completely different.
Right. It's like
So
the actual attachment style of them is different. It is still individual small strands, but
individuals, yes.
right, but they're being adhered differently.
That's another one name. I missed that one. They do call it like individuals as
Right.
well. So individuals and strand by strand can be the keratin K-tip, or it can be an I-tip. And then wefts. Now lately that has gotten quite a bit confusing for people, because the term hand-tied wefts, which that is referring to the way the weft is made, not the way it's applied to the hair. So people say, I want my hair hand-tied. Well, it's like, well, do, the weft is either machine made, a machine weft, or it's a hand-tied weft. Now, both can be great. And that's kind of getting into our next topic of conversation, because really any hair extension can be great or it can be awful.
Agreed.
It comes down to who's applying it.
Right.
Who's applying it? That is the number one thing. But just first, before you get into that, just so you kind of know the methods. There is the hand-tied weft and there's the machine weft. Hand-tied wefts, of course, have gotten a lot of very popular, very hyped up over the years. And I'm not saying it's not valid. They're cool. They can be absolutely great. Again, it comes down to who's applying it and how well do they know, what they're doing.
So
But
just to clarify, Ashley,
yes,
so the hand-tied weft is the technique in which the weft is attached, or the way in which the weft was made?
the way in which the weft is made.
Okay, got it. So it's hand-tied, meaning it's
Someone
just
has hand tied the hair onto the weft,
got it.
and then that can be applied in many different ways. It can be
Yeah.
applied with beads. It could be sewn in.
So
But
is
it's
the
become very popular, the hand tied, thinking that it's typically a little bit thinner. Typically, it's a bit thinner than a machine weft, because a machine can really sew more hair onto the weft.
got it.
But now there's some really incredible machine tied wefts that are quite thin. They
Yeah,
really kind of mimic that hand tied weft slimness,
got it.
but they're typically more durable.
Okay.
So
So you can like
hand-tied,
reuse it more.
you
would just like
perhaps can reuse it more.
Yeah.
You perhaps may have a little less shedding from the weft, because it is sewn in, the hair is sewn into
right.
the weft by machine.
And is the cost more expensive typically for the hand-tied or for the machine weft?
Well, that depends on the quality of the hair,
Yeah.
the quality of the hair
actual
itself. I would say generally a hand tied weft would be a bit more expensive, but that's really not the case, because I know some brands that have, ethically sourced European hair wefts. They are machine tied, but they're very thin.
Yeah.
It's going to be more expensive than your average hand tied weft
Right. Primo.
because the quality of the hair that is attached to it.
Important to note that Ashley just said European hair. Mhm. Let's talk real quickly about the different types of hair because we know European is the finest, right? Correct?
There's a couple, but European is wonderful. It can
Yeah.
definitely there's a lot of positives to European hair.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
And not for
Yes.
everybody, but
Not for everyone, but I would, but definitely like lots and lots of positives. The European, I would say a lot more positives.
yeah. And also just to be clear, we are strictly talking about real hair, everyone. Like
Yes.
when we're talking about extensions, like these are kinds of extensions we're talking about, ones that you can cut and style, apply heat to, sometimes in certain cases color, but we don't I know personally I never wanted to mess up the composition of it, but we're talking strictly real hair.
And that's a really good point because you do want to make sure there. Now, most brands are pretty honest, like especially big name brands, that when they say human hair, it is 100% human hair. But depending on where you're looking, especially if you're first getting started, just dabbling just a little bit, you do want to make sure that it says 100% human hair
Right.
because I don't know of a brand in particular, but again, if you are just dabbling and maybe buying something off of Amazon or something just to see, like
Yeah.
it may be, you can say human hair and have like one strand of human hair in it.
Right.
So it needs to be 100% human hair, unless you're not looking for that. If you're looking for something like to throw in really quickly for a party, or you want something that you don't, you typically, that's not what we're talking about. That's
Yeah, no, we're talking
different
about like
scenario.
longer wear. We're talking
Wearable.
quality
Yeah.
extensions that you can like use for more than a day and you're not
Yes,
just gonna throw
exactly.
in and then throw out. And yeah.
Something
Uh,
that's useful and wearable for long term.
right. Okay, so we have the keratin tip, we have the eye tip, we've got the hand sewn weft, the machine made
Machine weft.
weft. And then what else do we have?
We have tape hair,
Right.
because we've talked about, yes, and then we have tape in hair. Tape in hair, here's something. I think tape in hair can, I was going to say, I think tape in hair can sometimes get a bad rap, but honestly, you can search any type of hair extension attachment
Yeah.
and you'll see a horror story about
Yeah.
it. We'll see a horror story and then you'll see someone else saying, it's the greatest thing ever. It saved my hair. So again, it always comes back to the person applying it. Tape in hair can be awesome. It's applied really quickly. You can get that weft look, which is that kind of panel effect of hair. And it's very flat to the head. Very flat. It's quite comfortable. It has maintenance like a weft would have, where you have to get it retaped and with wefts get it moved back up. But most stylists don't like it because they don't want to retape it. They just don't
Right.
like the stickiness of retaping it. But as far as the client is concerned, it can be just
It's a great
fine. Everything
method.
comes down to who's applying it, is the person wearing it taking care of it, and something that is just as important as how it's applied is how it's removed. So whether that's removal of keratin, removal of wefts, removal of tape, removal is absolutely just as important as the application. But tapes can be great. And tapes have also come a long way. Speaking with people that have fine hair or have had hair loss, but the hair texture has changed. Single-sided tape hair, which means a lot for those listening, often tape hair is like kind of like a sandwich. You've got one top, you have your natural hair in the middle, and you sandwich it together with the tape. That's just the easiest way I can describe it. But if someone has very fine hair, sometimes that double-sided tape can be heavy on the hair or certain areas of the hair. And this is where you really get into customizing extensions. Maybe like the nape of the head may be a little more fine, around the hairline, maybe a little more fine. You can do like a single-sided tape, which is like you put the piece of tape hair and apply it. And instead of attaching hair behind or in front of it, you just have a tape tab that just seals it off and seals it shut instead of having that extra weight. So typically it may not last as long as a double-sided tape, but again, like if we're going for the health of our hair, we can get into that in a minute, like removals and such, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can't wear hair as long, especially when your hair, you're concerned about the integrity of your hair.
Right. We'll definitely get into that. I think it's so important for people to understand their options and what they should, kind of what their parameters should be within that. just so we can be really clear about this, tape and extensions, for those of you that don't know, it's like a piece of extension, like a flat piece of hair. It could be around, and I mean, you can customize it. It can be a centimeter or it can be like 2 inches long. But let's say like an inch and a half kind of wide of a flat section of hair. And then there's a very thin, like tiny strip of tape at the very top.
Like
of it.
like a double-sided tape.
Exactly. A double-sided tape, with one side of it being the hair and the extension, and then the other side of it just being the tape. And so we have that way of attaching to the hair. And so, okay, so before we get into kind of the do's and don'ts of it, Ashley, can you break down, with all these options, what is your personal preference, and how would someone, who ideally are these different methods for? Who ideally would you do these techniques on, and kind of who should stay away from, who's it, kind of what hair type, just to help kind of guide people with different hair types and textures and kind of which one they should maybe look at over the other.
Sure. Well, every stylist is going to have their own personal preference, given they the one that they prefer to apply. Maybe it's one that they prefer to wear, but everyone's going to have their pros and cons of each method, and it may differ a little bit. So I hate to kind of have a blanket statement and say this one is for this one and this one isn't, because again, it comes back to the person applying it. It also comes back to really looking into the extensions that you're looking at lots of pictures, also looking for people's hair like you on the person's website or their social media. So right now, like again, everything, all the different methods are innovating now. So they're more flexible as in who they are for. But as a general rule, I personally prefer keratin fusions. That's my favorite. I love to apply them. I love how much I can customize the head, because it's, 50 to 500 pieces that I'm applying. So those are just opportunities to apply something beautiful and something custom. It also takes a long time to apply. So it's typically, depending on especially if you're looking for length, you're probably in the salon for hours. But I like that because I can customize the bond. So typically a full size bond would be for someone with like medium or more of a thicker density. Most people, you're going to cut the bond in half. But again, the customization is beautiful. And the reason that I love the fusion so much, the brand of the fusion also matters. I like to use a brand that has more of a flexible keratin. It's not as hard on the hair. It's not as hard to apply. It's also not as hard to remove. So I enjoy that. But you can cut them down into even 4 little tiny micro pieces, like way smaller than a grain of rice, that they can be applied to the hair. So this method can be great for people that have experienced hair loss, people with have had post-cancer treatments and their hair is like growing back, filling in certain areas with alopecia. There's just so much you can do when you can take little itty bitty pieces and just apply it to the areas needed.
Yeah. It's the real designer method that
I
you
would say
can,
so.
right? Customize unlike any other extension method. That, as an extension specialist, like when you purchase your hair, it's one of the few types of extensions that you can actually break down, and like you said, further break down and really match that person's density and hair texture, which is just a whole other level. And that's typically why they tend to run more expensive than other methods.
Sure,
Correct?
because there's a lot to focus on. There's a lot to customize. It does take longer to apply. But the other reason that I like that method, and again, this is great for someone's lifestyle if you don't want to come in the salon very often.
Right.
Because you can apply them and wear them 2 to 6 months. And we can talk about that in a minute, like how long people wear it. But you don't have to you don't come in actually for maintenance appointments. When you come in, is to get it, take a look at it, take a peek, a check-in, or you're coming in to get the extensions removed. You don't need to do maintenance. And for me, my lifestyle, and for my client's lifestyle, the keratin, to put it in, be done with it. You can travel, you can swim, you can do whatever, all the things you need to do. And then you can come back in and remove it. So you don't have to come back into the salon every 4 weeks or so.
Yeah. Should we, do you think we should just touch on the do's and don'ts of that maintenance right now while we're on the subject of the keratin
We
tips?
can. Yeah.
Let's do that.
we
Let's talk
definitely
about, because I know like it's definitely the technician and the professional that's doing it that really matters, but then there's also what that individual is doing at home and if they've been advised correctly on how to take care of it at home. So what can someone expect with keratin tip extensions in terms of maintenance?
Well, in terms of maintenance, you apply them and you should, to me, they're the most low maintenance extensions, although they do take a half day or a full day in the salon. Once they're in, they're in. The main thing is brushing them. And that means brushing the scalp because we lose 100 to 150 hairs a day when 3/4 of your hair or so are in the bonds that, again, you wear for months at a time. Your hair is still naturally shedding. So what happens is you have the bond and the bond in your little hairs are falling off as they would naturally and come out in the shower, just natural, but they're so-called trapped in the bond. So they hang off the bond. And if we brush them to keep the little hairs down. If you don't, now you may not have any issues the first month. I don't like to tell people don't worry about brushing your hair for the first month.
Right. You're trying to develop a habit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the truth is, in a month's time, you're probably not going to have any challenges with maybe you'll have two and you just they're pop them apart. You're going to be fine. But you want to get in the habit of brushing your scalp every day. Plus, it feels good. It feels good to have like the brush against your scalp.
Yeah, especially the extension brushes, right?
Yes,
Feel
exactly.
nice.
It feels wonderful. It feels wonderful. So you'll want to. But if you're not brushing those hairs down, they will grab onto their neighbor and hang out and not want to let go. And that's when you can get matting. So if you Google matting with hair extensions, you'll see I haven't, but I imagine
goodness.
you'll see the
No,
craziest
do
stuff
not.
ever.
Do not
But let
Google
me tell
that.
you,
Oh my goodness.
people say, "Oh, it ruined my hair. My hair got matted." No, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
You ruined
You
your
let
hair.
it. You let it get matted.
You don't. You ruined it.
It's like when your dentist knows you haven't been flossing.
yes.
You can't lie. The extensions
No.
don't lie.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a bad application, you're going to know like immediately.
Right.
It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful, which you'd be surprised. I have done some people's hair before and they're like, "Oh, I don't have to take like pain pills, like, or I like extra
Oh my
strength Tylenol,
God.
like after I get my hair applied." I'm like, "No." They're like, "Oh, I always did in my other salon."
Oh,
Like,
I
no,
couldn't sleep the first 2 weeks. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I've
it's
heard
not
it.
supposed to. Exactly.
It's not torture.
It should be comfortable. You really, I mean, it may feel a little awkward the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, there's like something in your hair. It would be like going to sleep with your hair in like French braids. Like you would feel something, but it should never be painful. If it's painful, it actually is too tight.
Right.
Too tight, no matter what the method. If it's hurting, it's not good. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Where were we?
So definitely brushing, daily brushing with a
Yes.
designated extension brush.
You'll have a designated extension brush. You'll either purchase that at salon or many hairstylists, like in Rich Stylist Academy. I recommend them to give their clients a gift bag. Like give them the brush, give them the things that
Love
they need
that.
to like take care of their set, especially like for the first time.
Right.
And that
That
makes it
should be
really
built.
special.
Right, and that's such a great point, Ashley. And for all the cosmetologists and customers obviously listening,
Sure.
like it's not something that should be optional.
Well, because it's
Like,
not optional.
Yeah, like you should. I like the idea of including that in the package and making sure that they're going home with the necessary tools.
Well, because it's like, hey, do you want to buy this brush? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you have to.
Yeah, right.
So I
Well,
like make it special, like have it be a part of your client experience. Like give them the things that they need.
Yeah.
And again, like
that.
as far as keratin is concerned, I mean, with maintenance, again, it's quite easy. You don't want to use oils on the scalp. No, you can put oils in the ends of your hair, detangler, things like that. But really, with any method, you want to stay away from shampoos that have heavy oils in them, like cleansing conditioners. You can't
Mhm.
really use those with extensions. I love cleansing conditioners, but I can't use them when I have extensions in.
You
Curly
wanna
girls like to
prevent
use cleansing.
slippage. Yeah.
Yes, you want to prevent the slippage. That's pretty major. Also, swimming. I have had to. You can totally swim with keratin in your hair, but I have had people before that I have turned away. Someone that was a swim instructor, and she said, I wanted to get extensions for the summer, but just FYI, again, thank goodness she told me you have to be
Yeah.
honest with the person doing your extensions. She said, I'm in the pool most of the day, and I'm like, well, how much? What, 8 hours? I'm like, I don't think because it's the keratin bond, especially if you're using a high quality extension, it mimics the hair. So it expands and contracts. You want to keep the extensions as dry as possible. So when you get out of the shower, just dry the bonds real quick. You want them to get back into the state that they should be. If you're going to be now that doesn't mean you can't get extensions if you're going somewhere tropical or going to a resort, whatever it may be, you can, but protect your hair, put some conditioner in the ends before you jump in the water. When you get out, rinse your hair with fresh water, dry the bonds. You can still let it air dry, but you want to keep the bonds drier than wet.
Yeah.
And if you have the option, keep them dry. Keep them
Right.
dry.
Not like constantly just soaked in water.
You don't
I
need
mean,
to just soak in the water all
I
day.
think that's
No.
just such a good like reminder and point. It's like the keratin is material after all, right? It's like it can't just sustain any kind of environment all the time. It is although it's really durable, it's still pretty delicate in the sense that like, you know, remaining wet, it weakens it, right? It kind of breaks it down if it's like
Over
constantly
time,
wet. Yeah.
especially with like the salt water and like chemicals from a pool. I mean,
Right.
again, you could totally jump in the water without putting anything in your hair. I don't like to scare people. I mean, I actually think that with the keratin hair, you can still live your best life and really not have to worry about much.
Yeah.
But it is a good idea to, especially depending on how long you plan to wear them or how often you can have them redone. It's great to treat them very nicely because they are quite expensive.
What is the longest that you recommend someone leaving it in? And I know this depends on the hair quality and hair type, but if somebody is really taking good care of it and you know that they maintain it well, what's the longest you'll let them go?
It depends, yes, how much they're taking care of their hair, but even more so than that, it depends on their hair density. Typically, I tell people that have more of a medium density, their hair is in great condition, it's healthy, 4 months for keratin fusions. 4 months, and then it's a good idea to have them removed. If someone is their extensions are in tip-top shape, especially if someone's wearing full-size bond, because then there's even more keratin like holding on to attaching to the hair. I have had people be able to wear them 6 months. I think one person wore them 7. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to people because the longer you wear the hair or longer you wear the extensions, the more you actually do need to focus on brushing the scalp. So if someone is just epic at brushing and they have really, really strong hair, they're making sure to like separate the bonds at nighttime. Maybe they're going to sleep with their hair in a braid. You can if your hair is very strong. But sometimes people, especially with fine hair or delicate hair, they'll hear, oh, 6 months. Well, so-and-so, but they wore their hair 6 months. I'm like, their hair is completely different. It all comes down to like, what can your hair handle? And nobody wants to get extensions and then it ruins their hair.
Right, it
You
would
have to
defeat the
actually,
purpose.
it defeats the whole purpose. Yeah. Unless you want to be married to extensions forever.
That's a
Some
really
people do, but you
that's a
still want
really
your hair
good
to be
point.
healthy underneath.
Some people are putting extensions in to help their hair actually grow out and get healthy,
And it
right?
can.
Right. And then some people are putting it in because their hair just doesn't have the ability to grow to a certain length. So they know the limitations of their hair and they're like, okay, well, I can't do it naturally. Let me obviously extend the length.
Absolutely.
And then, and then others, like you
And you
said, are
can
like,
wear them indefinitely. You
Right.
can wear them as long as you want to, but you still always want to have healthy hair to attach it to because
Right.
extensions have to be attached. They
Right.
have to. You have to have healthy hair to attach it to. So it is very important to keep a healthy scalp, to use great products that are great for your scalp, to take care of your stress levels so that your scalp, the hair growing out of your scalp is healthy because
Right.
if you don't have hair to attach it to, you can't do anything with extensions. Now, there are hair loss treatments and such, hair toppers and things like that. But as far as extensions where you still get to, use your hair with the extensions, you have to have healthy hair to attach it to.
Right. Okay. So we've got the
There's a lot of
keratin.
things.
There are so much, right? So much to fill into this episode. So we have the keratin extensions, which are by far the most customizable ones and like, safe for people that might have the thinning and fine hair because you can just apply them at such a small amount at a time, which is less weight, ultimately less pulling on your
Less weight
on
yes.
your scalp.
One thing
and-
I do want to say about for people that are maybe may jump off the podcast and go, oh, I'm going to go right now and look for like keratin extensions.
Right.
Be sure that you are looking. Be sure that the stylist that you go to has pictures of like tiny bonds on their page.
Love that.
It's not just someone that does keratin extensions. It's like you want to try to find yourself on that page. And I mean your hair texture. Like you want to go to a stylist that has pictures of, we call it like under the hood, where like the hair is lifted up and you can see the attachments.
Yeah.
It's great if there's videos. Um,
Yeah. Such a good point.
a personal referral is also wonderful, but you still like the person referring may not have your same hair texture. Like they just, it may have gone great for them. You
Right.
really need to see, like, you want to see those tiny micro bonds if your hair is fine or you're really looking to look after the integrity of your hair. Make sure you
Such a
see
great
that on the
tip.
person's page.
Right, like, so, like, seeing their work and seeing that they have that variety in that one technique, that they
Yes.
do customize it, that they aren't just doing a one size fits all when they have the ability to customize. That's such
Yes.
a great point. Yeah, take a look and see that they just get lazy and apply the same large piece of extension to every hair type, or are they actually recognizing your density and realizing that as a professional, it's my responsibility to break this down further and like make them smaller. And this is such great, tips that people need to be aware of. Because how else would you know? Looking at photos before and afters are great and attractive, but there's so much more to it. I love
There's
that.
definitely more to it. I mean, you want to see a variety before and afters, but more importantly is the attachments, because
Um,
you can make a lot of hair look good, but you don't know what
yeah,
it looks like attached. And the attachment part is the most important when it comes to the hair health.
right. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the next method, the wefts. Who are they ideally for? And these are obviously just to make clear for everybody, these are extensions that are a larger piece, like width-wise, so like a kind of band of hair, and then they can vary in thickness, like how much hair is actually on that band and whatnot. But Ashley, could you break down who that's ideally for? Who should consider it? Who should stay away from it? Maybe any
Sure.
thoughts?
So the wefts are typically great for people that have more of a medium to thick density. They're a little bit more bulky than a strand by strand or a tape and extension, just due to the nature of them, the way they are applied. They can be sewn in, like braided and sewn in the hair, a weft, or it can, right now, what's very popular is beaded in, like the eye tip method, but it's using the bead to what's not clip, but using the bead to attach the weft into the hair. And there's lots of different methods. There's lots of different. It can be confusing. I don't want to call out like
Yeah,
name
right. So much.
brands, but essentially like a beaded weft now, and it can be, again, it can be machine tied, it can be hand tied, but a beaded weft is one of those. There are that some people would argue, because there are less attachment points.
Mhm.
There's not 300 pieces that are being attached to the hair. I don't know exactly how many with the weft, but it would depend on how many wefts you're using. But there are less attachment points, therefore it is healthier. It may or may not be. Again, I feel like I'm a broken record, but it goes back to who is applying it and how well they, know what they're doing. But wefts can be great. Again, you're going to have maintenance with them. They're great because you can apply them quite fast. They give you a lot of volume and density and bulk to the
Right.
hair. Well, a lot of the Instagram bloggers and models and stuff you see, not all of them, but a lot of them that just have this massive amount of volume, a lot of times it is a weft. A lot of times it's a beaded weft. You can also do hybrid methods if someone just like, I want that really voluminous look and down to my waist, really thick and full, but you also need a little help at the front of your hair, perhaps around, to have like a stronger fringe. You can add like a keratin around the front of the hairline, but wefts
Right.
can be great. A quick attachment. You do have to go in for maintenance. More so than not, it is better for people that have more of a medium to thick density. But there are some stylists who do a great job applying them to fine hair. Again, you would need to get it moved up more often. It's also great for people if you know for sure that you want to wear your hair in a high ponytail all the time. Typically, because of how they're applied at an angle.
Right.
When you
Starting
flip it,
from one temple, going
yes,
across the head to the other temple.
exactly.
Yeah.
Usually more of a horseshoe type of shape. You can pull the hair up in a high pony, one of the only things with keratin extensions, which you can do it a few times here and there, but you do not want to get in the habit of wearing your hair in a high ponytail with
Right.
keratins. there's so many attachment points to pull up. And the beauty of keratins is that they can be applied much closer to the hairline. Again, it's fully customized, but because of that, you don't want to pull too much like around
Right.
the hairline.
And like, yeah, because it's like applied to the hair in the direction of it growing down. And then if you're putting it up in the pony, you're kind of pulling up at that. And especially if you like tight ponies, right? That's like such a big
Yeah.
no-no.
Yes. Yeah,
But
exactly. Now
that's
you
just a
can do like a
tight.
loose lower pony braid, like all those
Right.
types of things, but like the high slick pony,
Right.
not the best for keratins. Again, if you're going to an event and you want to wear it that way, you could get away with it maybe once or twice during a
Yeah.
set. Still not going to be the best for your hair, but wefts can be good in that sense. And they're also good like if you need something fast. You need something fast and you want to have a
Like a
really
major
beautiful
makeover.
major makeover, quick and easy, like wonderful.
Right.
Depends, like some people want to, they're fine with spending like 8 hours or so in the salon having a full head of fusion, but then they don't have to come back for 4+ months. And some people are like, I can't be in the salon for 8 hours. I want to be out in 2 hours and I don't mind coming back every month.
Right.
It's all about your life. It's really about their
So
lifestyle.
true. There's so many factors.
It's good that there's different methods. Some people are just like, well, this is the best method. I'm like, well, it's maybe the best method for you as a stylist and maybe the best method for a lot of people, but due to people's lifestyle. And that's why it's also very important for your consultation. Like, let your stylist know, like, here's some of my hobbies. Here's the things I do. Here's how I like to wear my hair. Here's how much I like coming into the salon or not.
Yeah.
Those things are really important because that really dictates the type of extensions that may be best for you. And you may evolve, you may change. I used to only wear fusions in my hair now, and it's still my favorite to apply.
Mhm.
And I think it's the best for a majority of people. But for myself, I wear tape ins.
Yeah.
And it's
If
kinda
anybody
weird,
is not watching this on YouTube and seeing the video, you guys, her hair is, I can't even describe it. It is it's like jewel, like purple, gorgeous, shiny, vibrant color. And then,
thank you.
oh God, it's like delicious. And then it's just like past the shoulders, wavy.
Yeah, I don't have any extensions in now. I
Is
actually
that all
had them
you?
all summer. Yeah, this is all my
Wow.
hair. Yeah, I don't have any.
Like
It's
living
all,
proof of the fact that you can like completely live in extensions and have amazing, healthy hair.
thank you. No, you definitely can. I mean, it's. I have my tape ins. I'm gonna reapply them in January or so. But I
And
just right
she
now,
wears them long.
I do. If I do
Oh
it, I'm
my
like,
God. It's like way down to the floor.
go big or
Gorgeous.
go home.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I
Thank
love it.
you,
You make
thank
it
you.
look so fun. Okay, so we briefly talked about it comes down to the extensionist and their technique and then also how important the consultation aspect of extensions is. Can we just briefly touch on what a big responsibility it is for the hairstylist to make sure they're asking all the right questions? Because yes, like, you mentioned a couple times, be sure to tell your extensionist about your activities. It's really, I believe, the professional's job to extract all that info from you.
It
So
definitely
let's talk
is.
about the consultation process a little bit.
It definitely is. It's really important as a stylist to have a consult or really a client questionnaire. You can email that to the person beforehand. You can have it when they come in, whatever is best for you, but asking them about their lifestyle. Again, have you ever worn extensions before? If they have, tell me about it. How was your hair while you wore extensions? What brands or what methods did you wear? Asking the client about really their health history. You don't have to share every little thing about it, but
Yeah, but
are
there are
you,
some
you know,
pretty important things.
there are medications. The client wouldn't need to share the medication. But again, like I feel like you need to be advocates for yourself. If you know that there's a medication that you're taking or you've changed the medication recently and you know you have this gut feeling that it's causing some hair challenges for you, you don't have to share that medication with your stylist, but say, yes, I may be taking something that could affect my hair, or just shelf it and come back for the consultation later. But there are medications, of course, if you're on chemo or some sort of cancer medication, obviously don't get extensions of the hair shedding. Quite obvious, but nonetheless, it's still on the medication list. Medications for arthritis, gout, some antidepressant medication, isotretinoin for Accutane. It can cause some hair loss. Again, it can be rare, but it can still happen. So it's just important to be educated on what can cause hair loss or look at your medications. And also, like, herbs also can be very powerful. Herbs and vitamins, those types of things. If you feel like anything could be contributing to hair loss, obviously speak with a professional, but be honest with yourself and also honest with your stylist so that they know. One time I did a girl's extensions. She went in for surgery the day after I did her extensions. Long story short, afterwards, her hair really started shedding in about 4 weeks. All of her extensions had just come out because her hair was
Right.
shedding so much. So it does happen sometimes. Anesthesia can cause your hair to shed.
Yeah, right.
If you want to be extra careful, you'd want to wait 6 months after being under general anesthesia before you had extensions applied. If you're wanting to be extremely cautious, and especially if you're spending multiple thousands of dollars and you're concerned that maybe your hair may be shedding, depending on your lifestyle, you may not want to. You may want to wait 6 months for having like a whole head of fusion or something applied.
Right. Just wait
It's
until kind of
still rare,
everything
but
is even and any kind of shedding has ceased. That's such a great point that you bring up. Anesthesia, not even the anesthesia alone, but even the post surgery trauma is a shock to the body. And that kind of shock is aligned with any kind of diffuse telogen effluvium, any kind of shedding that can occur 3 to 4 months post trauma. So, and I love that you said wait 6 months after these surgeries, because technically 3 to 4 months after, you may not have begun shedding yet. So
yes.
it's such an important thing to bring up, especially because that is a very personal matter that not everybody wants to necessarily share with someone they just met. But yeah, like, do you have any surgeries coming up? Have you done a surgery in the past, like, less than 6 months? I think that's
Yes.
amazing. And then,
And it's just coming down to agreeing on. You may still choose to go forward with it. I mean, again, some of these
or,
are rare occasions, but it's just being aware, being informed, and agreeing that, okay, I am choosing to go forward with this. Like both parties are like, okay, I think we've
right,
come to a conclusion that maybe this is a great option right now. Or, hey, like, let's circle back in 4 to 6 months. Same thing like pregnancy. It's people often ask me that say for me to get extensions when I'm pregnant. I'm like, you can get an extension when you're
sure.
pregnant. Just beware that after you give birth, you may lose a lot of hair, or you may want to wait before you get them reapplied. But during pregnancy, like sure, just
Yeah,
do your
it's
thing.
totally
You'll be
safe.
fine.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. I've always had that question too. I mean, mind you, I can understand like you want to be cautious about everything you're doing, but the extension doesn't necessarily touch your scalp. So you're like, you're safe,
No.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah. It's
there's no
totally fine.
chemical or anything like that happening
Yeah.
that you're exposed to like that. So definitely good. Okay. That's really amazing. Let's talk about the final method and who we like it for, tapes. Now you have or you typically do them for your own hair. And you have very healthy looking hair. It looks like great thick density. But, who is it ideally for and who should maybe avoid tapes if at all?
I would avoid tapes if you're again in the water a lot. The hair, even more so than keratin, the attachment, like the double-sided tape, has to be dried. Like if you go one time with having your hair wet and let it air dry, you really run the risk of it getting kind of gunky and sticky. It needs to maybe you could wait a little time before you get out of the shower, but like you don't want to go a full day or something and just letting your attachments air dry. It could get weird and you'll have slippage happen. I've done that myself 4 years ago. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna let air dry. Not a good idea. So you want to be sure that you're keeping the tapes as dry as possible. They're
Could you
great
just
for people.
actually, could you just explain how exactly someone could keep the extension tape part dry, but let the rest of their hair air dry? Right? Like,
So yeah. So
exactly.
let's say you shampooed your hair and then you want to let your hair air dry. You can do this with tape or keratin, the ones that really matter the most, that you keep the attachment dry, is just simply you could clip the top of your hair up if you'd like to, like the crown of your hair, and just simply take the blow dryer and put the nozzle close to your attachments, not on the attachment. So, a few inches away, just to get some of that extra dampness and the wetness out of your scalp. It doesn't have to be 100%, but it needs to just get that extra heaviness and dampness out of the scalp for keratin and for tape and hair. And then just, hey, put some oil or cream in the ends or curl cream, whatever it is that you want to use this to let your hair air dry, and let it be. The attachment is what needs to be dry. It doesn't mean that every single time you have to like full on have a styling moment with your extensions,
Right.
because that can
It's
take
like,
a lot of time. And sometimes
like
you want
a
to let it air dry. Maybe you like the texture of the extensions. Yeah.
right. Okay. So you're just assisting in the drying and like you said, you don't have to completely dry the roots. But yeah, there's a delicate balance because like sometimes you just want to air dry your hair, but if
Sure.
that's what you're doing every day, what you're saying is assist the roots a little bit, get a little bit of that dryer and
Give them a little
yeah,
help.
yeah,
Yes.
right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so tapes are really great for, they're actually can be very great for people that have fine hair. They can definitely be great. They're, especially if you're doing like a single-sided tape method, they can be great. I mean, I could also say that tapes are great for everyone because they're great for all hair textures. I said more so, I shouldn't say textures. They're great for all hair densities. They can be great in heavy density or as well as fine hair. But yeah, tapes can be great. Now they also make tapes now that different brands call them different things, but I call them like a premium tape. And that is where the hair is actually on the outside of the tape as well. I know I wish I had a visual to show for people on YouTube.
So cool.
But that's really nice because it looks like the hair is actually growing from the scalp. And for people that have very fine hair, where your hair is almost kind of see-through at the scalp, if you have like a rooted texture or you have a color that is like matched perfectly with your scalp in the end, you can actually take that premium tape and apply it maybe just a half an inch from your part line. And it looks like your hair is just growing out of the scalp. So they can be really wonderful for people with very, very fine hair.
That's so great. And how often do you recommend redoing them? And does it vary for different hair types?
It varies like any maintenance and removal method. It would vary. I would say tapes, the average would be about 6 weeks. When I was wearing them, I actually wore them for over 8 weeks and my hair was fine, but my hair is more of a medium density. If you have very, very fine baby hair, you're probably, I mean, I would err on the side of caution and I would recommend a client who has very, very fine hair wearing tapes, like at 4 weeks, we need to remove this. Speaking of that, I'd like to share something about with the keratins because sometimes keratins, again, people say, well, I so and so wore their keratin extensions 6+ months. If someone comes, we were just talking about this inside of Rich Stylist Academy. Actually, they were having a challenge with a client who they're like, oh, it was like 8 weeks, and their hair, like the keratin bond started slipping, and I said, listen, she probably needs her extensions removed at 8 weeks. Like, not everyone can wear them that long. And especially if their hair is fine. And she posted pictures of the hair and the scalp and everything. I was like, this person is probably someone who needs their hair removed at 8 weeks. I had many clients who came in because I really always like to focus on like, I love the cosmetic look of extensions, like a drastic before, like hair down to your waist, but I really like to fix hair, like fix whether it's like a chemical haircut, something, or someone who like just has never had volume in their hair and you're able to give them that look for the first time.
Mhm.
It's always just something that just lit me up. But I did have clients again who had very, very fine hair. I said, okay, we're going to have to cut these bonds into 3 and 4 sizes, very, very small. And full disclosure, you cannot wear these longer than 8 weeks.
Right.
Even fusion. I was like,
And
you're,
sign on the, yeah, like sign
yes,
on that dotted line, like you agree because you know.
right. Even though the average is 4 months, you're not the average.
Right.
Again, people need to get comfortable with like the average. Someone may be above average with how long they can wear them. You may be way below average, but 8 weeks, I was like, it's time. And usually people at 8 weeks are like, yeah, you know what? I really am ready to have it removed. And I'm like, we have to like keep the health of your hair and the health of your scalp at the forefront of our mind. Cause that's the whole point. I was like, if you wear this, maybe you could wear it 4 months, but I'm telling you, you're going to lose some hair. You're going to have a couple bald spots. And then you do that for 2 years, all of a sudden you don't have any hair on the scalp to attach it to. So that is what we're not going for that. But just either, again, everything's kind of relative, comes down to the person. It also comes down to the removal.
Yeah.
Some people if you hear a stylist that tells you you need to get this removed in 8 weeks and you're thinking, are you kidding? I just paid this much for this hair, and trust them.
Yeah, right. There
Yes.
is a rare occasion. It's good to know. Okay, so let's talk about more trending things in the extension world. What are we seeing today that we weren't seeing before? And what kind of new advents are there? What are you excited about?
Right now, what is really exciting, or definitely the movement in the hair extension world, is hair loss solutions, hair toppers, different hair integrations that can be paired with hair extensions. One thing that hair extensions rarely, I mean, they can sometimes, especially if you're working with a custom micro point type of keratin tip, you can attach them at the top of the head. But again, you can only attach to what hair is there. you can't attach a lot of hair to very little hair. You can only enhance the top of the head so much. But now with like hair pieces and hair integrations, you can apply the hair extensions in the traditional method in the interior of the hair, but then having toppers that can be cut and matched and blended in with the extensions, a huge movement in the hair extension industry. And I like seeing that brands are getting more innovative in that area. It's been needed for a really, really long time. I know there's been companies that have been doing it, but that's what they've specialized in the whole time. But to see hair extension companies now integrating that in is really exciting. And inside Rich Stylist Academy, we talk about this often. So many of the stylists are getting certified in hair loss solutions, and it's really exciting. Talk about making someone's day. Not when you just make their hair a little more thick or a little more long, when you're able to literally just have a solution for their entire head and give them that volume on the scalp that they've always wanted. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's so remarkable. And you're so right. Like, even over the years when I was doing extensions, like, I had so many clients that could have used a topper, but it's not accessible. Like, it was always such a separate part of hairdressing, like where people that did, wig specialists would maybe kind of
Yes.
offer it, or it was like a very complicated, you know, like just minimal information. And so you just kind of stayed away from it as a professional.
I
But I
agree.
love that today other companies, extension companies, are offering it because toppers are so necessary. So many women can benefit from them, and men, of course. But speaking specifically about like women's hair, being able to have like a small section that actually sits on the top and look
Mhm.
good and
And it's comfortable. They've
right.
come a really long way. And the great actually, speaking of women, the great thing is that there are solutions for women now. Previously, even though women could have worn like the toppers that were more, they were still geared more towards men, because a
Yeah.
lot of the ones, even the ones that look really good, and people still do it, and it's still a great method, but a lot of times they shave the top of the head. But, they take the rest of the hair off, like the
Right.
scalp. Like if you just have a little bit of hair, they like shave it off and it's attached with an adhesive, and it can look, because you're looking down at their scalp, like through the integration. It's amazing. But a lot of women don't want to do that.
Yeah,
It's scary,
that's very scary. That's like,
very
I don't
scary.
want to see it even if it's temporary.
Exactly. So like that can be very scary. And so a lot of those were only available to men. And then even finding someone who could do those perfectly was hard. So that's why unfortunately, you see, you can spot a hair hat from a mile away often, and it's sadly often on men, because that's just what's been available. But it is good now that there are companies that they are innovating new methods that don't, and there's nothing wrong if someone wants to wear it that way. I mean, it works great for the people that it's perfect for. But it's nice that there are some innovations now where you're you can, a lot of times, out like tape, like again, the tape method, it's attached to the hair that you do have, is pulled through the hair integration. There's lots of different ways that, again,
Yeah.
there's so much innovation happening in that area. And now with hair extension companies, you can blend it with the hair extensions that you're using, like find a topper. That would have been the hard thing in the past too. Is like, great, oh, okay, I'm adding my hair extensions, but like this other company has a topper, but I need to make sure it works. And then
Right.
it's just a lot. It's complicated, but I think it's getting less complicated now,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. I also like post-COVID, or post-COVID. Is there ever a official hard cutoff with post-COVID? But post-pandemic, the stress. It's like oh my goodness, so many people are needing these hair integration systems because of what
Sure.
we experience health-wise and uh, lifestyle stress-wise.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's so great. I mean, it's exciting. It's an exciting time for the consumer to know that the same people that are doing extensions for your existing hair can now offer something to more balding or thinning areas on top. It's so great. That really didn't, like, when I did it, I wish I could offer that, because it seemed like there were so many people that I could only help to a certain extent. And, and I,
I mean, I've had to turn people away before. Like if they came in and, they just had basically no hair on top, I was like, I don't do hair. And that's
yeah,
unfortunate.
it's
Sad to be able
unfortunate.
to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, something else that we started talking about at the beginning, and we
Yeah.
may want to talk about it, or maybe we want to save it for another podcast in the future,
Okay.
with the different types of hair, like the European, that
Yeah,
should we
definitely.
touch on that?
I think we should. I think people need to know why the prices can vary so much,
That's a good point.
and how to better kind of understand what you're buying. Maybe you're like buying stuff online, or you're walking
Yeah.
into a shop and just picking something off the shelf. But yeah, Ashley, that would be great. Let's break it down.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because then you'll see that as well as all the different attachments. You'll also see people sharing the type of hair. And the truth is, everyone says it's the best hair. Every company says it's the best hair.
Exactly.
It may be the best hair for a certain person.
Mhm.
It comes down to your hair texture. You're wanting to match your hair texture. Perhaps you're also looking for the highest quality. Now there are higher qualities than others, but again, like, it still comes down to, like, what's the highest quality for you? Some people naturally have frizzy wild hair and maybe wearing a silky European hair. When they wash their hair, if they go out on the beach, they're going to have like crazy hair on top, silky, long, straight hair, like, if they're doing like a lengthening treatment. So it,
Right.
for some people, sometimes, like, truthfully, maybe not even quote the highest quality hair is the best for them. But the curl pattern and the texture is really, really important. Asking the stylist what the hair looks like when it air dries is great to know. Also being like letting your stylist know when you're in for a consultation what your hair looks like when it air dries. Maybe have a picture, or maybe you go in with your hair's natural texture.
Great idea.
911, especially if your hair is curly. If you have curly hair, go into your consultation with your hair in its natural texture if you plan to wear it that way while you have extensions in.
Right.
It's really
Yeah.
important
Let them
to know.
know what they're working with.
Yeah. So but the typically the different types of hair there is, well, 80% of the hair extension hair in the world comes from China. It's not the best.
Mhm.
It's not the best hair for, really, I would say, almost free one. It's just not the best. If you've ever worked in colored Asian hair before, it's strong and then all of a sudden it snaps. Like, if you're lightening, the cuticle is large and dense, but its lightening ability is just not there. It gets very fragile quickly. The best hair for hair extensions is going to be Indian hair and European hair. And those are the two most, European's not as readily available. Indian hair is much more readily available, and it's also donated willingly and freely, because the Indian hair, part of their religion and culture, they're actually cutting the hair and donating the hair, like, as a sacrifice to their religion, to their god or goddess. So they know that they are donating the hair. They know that the hair is being sold to hair extension companies. It works for everyone.
Yeah.
But the Indian hair is most similar to, say, like, North American hair as far as the texture. Surprisingly, it may sound surprising, but their hair is typically not being color treated. Often it's
Right.
covered, it's very protected, and there's like mass quantities of it. Isn't India like the highest populated country in the world? I think it is.
Right.
So it has the most volume of hair, again, being donated freely and willingly enough. It's called Indian temple hair, but Indian hair is wonderful. European hair is wonderful too. There's typically not as much of it because it's not typically a part of their religion to donate it. It's also, there's less people,
Right.
and it may be a little more color treated. It's just so that for that reason, it can be more rare. If someone has fine hair, silky fine hair, European hair, it's going to be a wonderful match.
Right.
It's going to be incredible. So again, Indian hair is most usually going to have more of a body wave to it when it's wet, when it air drying. So if your hair has a natural wave to it, Indian temple hair can just potentially match it perfectly.
Yeah, like
You
that
have-
pretty like beach wave kind of
Yes.
relaxed kind of wave look.
Yes,
Love that.
exactly. And European hair is going to typically, again, be a little more silky, probably not much of a wave, unless the company that you're using has a particular European sourced hair that has a wave texture to it. But again, it's going to be lower qualities. Oftentimes, European hair is even more expensive because it's not as
Rare.
available. It is
Yeah.
more rare.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are the main ones. A lot of I shouldn't say a lot of the giant companies, like giant hair extension companies, because there are very big companies that are Indian temple hair as well. But some of the brands that have just popped up in the last few years and that are very, very big are Asian hair, and it's average.
Yeah.
It's average.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I've also heard that like more Eastern Asian sourced hair is gathered hair versus the Remy hair. So like the cuticles are not intact and they can run in different directions because it's gathered like, I don't know, from shedding or from cutting or from the ground or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you're more prone to tangling, whereas the Indian Remy hair specifically is hair that was cut intact with the cuticles all running in the
From the same
direction.
person, usually like certain
Right.
company, like from the same person, the cuticles all going the same way. So you're not getting that matting. Like what happens if you're wearing extensions that have cuticles in different directions and it's not Remy, you're just gonna wash it and it's just gonna it's gonna go crazy. It's gonna like literally a rat's nest. That's
Even if
why.
and that can even happen when the extension itself feels super silky at first,
Mhm.
right? You know, I've seen that when you touch it at like right out of the packaging, it's like, oh my God, this feels incredible. And
It's
then
like
you wash
silk.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you wash it and you're like, what happened? It's like
Mhm.
Barbie hair,
Sure.
which is not a good thing.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, those are the main ones. Again, again, like it can depend on how long you're going to wear the hair. I mean, everything depends on the circumstance and your lifestyle. And again, this is the last time I'll say it. Who was applying it and
Ah,
who was removing it? Because
all
both
the
of those things
more
are the main importance.
all the more reason why that consultation is so important. That because there are so many different methods and things to take into consideration, everybody is so unique. There's no one size fits all thing. And this is something I personally always wished people could understand more about, or that was more clear in the extension world, was it's a big freaking deal. Like doing
Yes,
extensions is not just a basic service. It's, I think, more complicated and requires more diligence, more prep work than hair color, than any kind of other chemical processing. Like it's just like like, you know, people, and I'm sure you've heard this with the keratin method. They're like comparing it to surgery. Right,
yes,
it's like
definitely. Yeah,
it's this
so detailed.
delicate, meticulous kind of process that can make or break someone's hair. So it can't be taken
Definitely.
lightly. It's a big conversation. And I can tell, obviously, like you being an educator and having built this platform, like that's respecting the art and appreciating, you know, giving it the respect that it deserves, because if there isn't enough education, then there's so many botched jobs out there.
Right. And
Yeah,
that we want to lessen the amount of those. For sure.
definitely. We can't go to bed knowing there's botched extension jobs out there. There's nothing
Right.
worse. Okay, so Ashley,
Exactly.
so let's just to wrap things up. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about everything else that you're doing, your personal blog, Affirmation Babe, what all that is. Let everyone know just how dynamic you are.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think kind of wrap it back into the hair story. I mean, I do a handful of things. Yes, they all have a common thread, but we have our hands in a few different things. So when I first moved, I live in South Carolina right now. When I was married, my ex-husband, I lived in Texas, and then I had a big business there. I had a full clientele. We moved to Las Vegas. I didn't know anyone. I had no clientele, all these types of things. And I actually took about a couple years off from doing hair, but I was just deciding like where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, like that type of thing in the hair industry. But I just can't not do anything. So I decided during those 2 years, I decided to start a lifestyle blog, like health and wellness. Again, I've always been really interested in health and wellness, and I wanted to really bring together like healthy food, healthy lifestyle, healthy beauty options. My blog, ashleydiana.com. So and then a couple years later, I started doing hair and focus on hair extensions in Las Vegas. So sometimes when people are like, wait, you have a blog or you do hair? I'm like, well, I've been doing hair. I always say since I was 14, but since I got out of high school, like I've been doing hair, but I started a lifestyle blog along the way to kind of integrate like my lifestyle. So I'm really focused on health and wellness and then the beauty and into a blog. And then fast forward to life, I again getting focused on becoming a hair extension only specialist myself. I actually began supporting other extensionists and helping them with their business as well in hair extensions. And one thing that I noticed with stylists and people and hair extensionists was that it's really like the mindset, having the confidence to do the things you want to do, to have the confidence to have a powerful consultation, to have the confidence to really share what's the total price going to be for these extensions. Because a lot of hairstylists will sometimes get a little gosh, am I going to tell someone that these extensions are going to cost $3,000? I'm like, yes, you are. You are going to tell them that that's how much it costs. That's just a number I'm making up. Don't be scared if you're hearing this thinking, oh my God, all extensions are 3,000. Some of them are. Some of them are more than that. Some of them are less.
Right.
But nonetheless, I really noticed that mindset, like having a power mindset was so important to having an epic life, having the kind of business you want, having the clientele that you want. So I personally started working with affirmations, which are simply positive I am statements that help you become and feel and have the things that you want. I created a podcast just during the pandemic. Actually, I had been writing affirmations for myself. This came out of like working with hairstylists and thinking, gosh, what if I like work with affirmations, like have something they can listen to, like driving to the salon, and then just share this message with people about having a strong growth mindset. I created a podcast called Affirmation Babe, and I launched it during the pandemic. And honestly, it just took off like crazy because really, I think during that time, people looking for something to help make them feel better and to feel more confident, feel more joy, feel more happiness, feel less stressed. That's how the Affirmation Babe podcast came along. And that is how they've all sort of integrated together. And we have our hands in a few things, but again, they have a bit of a common thread. And we actually really support a lot of hairstylists through the Affirmation Babe podcast. And there are, as well as health and wellness, we have podcasts for healthy skin. Affirmations for healthy skin and hair. That's how it all kind of was created.
Love that. It's beautiful. It's all kind of come together intentionally. I love that.
Thank you.
Really
this has been such a great chat. It's been really fun.
This has been a lot of good stuff in here.
A lot to talk about with it. I feel like each one you could like go off. Okay, like today we're talking about just hair textures. Like there's just so much. It's exciting.
It is. It is so much, which is why you need an entire academy to help.
There is a lot. There's a
the technique. Okay, this was amazing, Ashley. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really so lovely talking to you.
Oh, it was an honor. I absolutely loved it. You have like the greatest platform, and it's so wonderful like how you're able to support people and women and with their hair health. It's really needed. I actually tell extensionists often, I'm like, the ones that really use the language of healthy hair in their social media and that's like the basis of how they do extensions, I'm like, you're really on to something.
Yeah.
It's really important to have that as like part of the language and part of what you share.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have healthy hair, you can't do as much with it. So it's very important. It's from the inside out. So what you do is like so helpful to the world.
You know, we're just both here to give back and empower women and do it the right way.
That's right. That's right, honey. I love it.
Happy way. Ashley, you're so amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for being on the show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you've heard and you can think of a few other women to share this podcast with, please do leave me a quick review in whichever platform you're listening from. And if you have any recommendations or comments, email me at grow@hairlikehers.co or follow me at hairlikehers podcast on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.